And you're listening to CIA, Contagious Influencers of America. I'm David Sams, along with Victoria Robinson.
So good to be here.
Oh my gosh. You know, I just feel such an honor to have you here when Tim travels a lot.
He does.
Around the country and around the world. Looking at his Facebook and his Instagram, I see him with all of the movers and shakers around the world, and he is such a phenomenal life coach.
Right, and I'm honored to be sitting in his place when he can't do this.
And
I still don't know why you would ask me in place of Tim. There's no comparison.
Look, we all know.
I'm just cuter.
we all know you're cuter, and we all know that you have that thing that only,
thing.
A mother of 4.
That's right.
How many grandbabies do you have now?
4 and 2 on the way. So just found out about one last week.
You know, I just love having the different sides of the conversation. I get this over here with Tim. Of course, I get the life coaching, and then I get this over here with you. And what I get is that extra special something that you bring to the table as a friend that you can give me, you know, the woman's perspective on things. I think it's kind of cool.
I appreciate that.
Yeah. So today we have with us a group called the Sweet Tea Trio.
Yeah, and you cannot say that fast.
No, sweet tweet. Yeah, I would go tweet or
I'd say
tweet.
Sweet.
See,
treat. I can't even do it once. Yeah, these girls are Savannah Coker, Kate Falcon, and Victoria Camp. They make up the group Sweet Tea Trio, and they are fabulous.
They're country, but I want to tell you, they are your daughter's, Colby's age-ish.
Right,
okay?
Yeah, 18 to 20 years old.
Yeah, and it's interesting because they all live together in Nashville. I see like a sort of a sitcom or one of those shows on Freeform, you know, with the girls living together, kind of were the old days of MTV.
These are the best years of their life.
So at any rate, I'm expecting one thing when they walk in here. Okay, I hear a young country female trio, and you know, you conjure up, okay, great. They blew me away. First of all, they're all believers.
Right. Yep.
They all have incredibly interesting backgrounds, and over the last year or two, they have gone through some major life things.
Oh, I mean, Kate was almost killed in a car wreck, broke her back.
Oh,
this young woman. It blows me away, their stories, all three of them. I think it's always interesting, David, when somebody comes in and you think, oh, great, a country's, you know, Nashville's all about country, another country group trying to sell records.
Right.
And then it turns into something completely different.
It turned into a therapy session. They were in tears. I was in tears. And you're going to hear why we were all in tears. And I'm not talking about necessarily tears of joy. I mean, we were really feeling it. And those of you who are dealing with anything from a loss of a loved one to depression to
divorced parents,
you've got to listen to this. You are going to get something phenomenal out of this. And I want to tell you something. You know, I also interview a lot of Christian music artists for one of our radio shows, Keep the Faith. I mean, everybody in the business. I interview X number of country artists for Contagious Country. And I will tell you, this was probably, with these 3 young women, the most authentic interview I have done since arriving in Nashville.
Wow. That's saying a lot.
That's saying a
honestly.
lot. We're going to roll the tape. Actually, I don't think tape exists anymore.
It doesn't. You just aged yourself.
I can't even say push the button, right? Now, by the way, if I say, Alexa, play the podcast, but if I'm on the podcast when I say that, or if I'm on Alexa already, and she hears me say, Alexa, play the podcast to like herself, would that be like confusing? Would she like, or maybe the other Alexas in my house would respond to that Alexa?
I just always still think when you mention Alexa, all I think about is when you asked her to tell you who Jesus was.
Hey, can you imagine? I have a family that stayed here this past weekend with me that got out of the hurricane,
right.
the recent hurricane.
I saw that. Thank you for doing that. That was very sweet.
I had them come over, and it was so wonderful having this family and these 3 kids in my house. I mean, that was just so awesome. And frankly, I thought, man, this would be kind of cool having kids in the house again. You know?
Did they break anything?
No. Well, here's a funny thing.
mattered.
Denise, my assistant, she told me, she said, I said, so how old are these kids? And at one point she goes, well, I think one of them's like recent addition to the family since we started working. Basically, I did the math in my head and I'm like, oh man, there's going to be like a 2-year-old showing up here. So last Friday night from about 5 o'clock until they got here, which is 11, I'm going through the house, baby proofing everything.
Oh my
I'm pulling up
gosh.
the chemicals from under the counters. I'm putting stuff up against the plugs on the wall. I go look for anything that resembles like a baby gate that I can put on all of my stairs because I got 3 sets of stairs. I mean, anything that's glass.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah,
like
put it away.
I'm like hiding it in drawers.
Absolutely.
So at 11 o'clock, I hear knock on the door,
Right.
And it's
The family.
the family. It's the dad, and then the mom's coming up with one of the little girls, and then the older daughter gets out of the car, and she's like rubbing her eyes because they all been in asleep. It's been a
Oh, right, and
7-hour
then
drive
driving.
from
North
the Carolinas.
Carolina.
I'm waiting for the infant,
Oh.
the baby.
Did you leave them in the car? Where's the baby? Are they in the car seat?
So I'm waiting on the baby, right? And I'm like, you have 3, right? Oh yeah, she's coming. or he's coming. I'm like, you mean they're walking?
Did he just unsnap himself out of his car seat?
You mean they're walking already? Right?
Well, they
The
would
next thing
at
I
2,
know-
David.
The next thing I
anyway.
know,
Just-
the next thing I know, this little kid's walking around the corner with his pillow in his hand, and the little one was 5.
oh,
So I had just spent the entire evening baby
yeah,
proofing
6 hours baby proofing for a 5-year-old. Well, it's better to be safe than sorry.
Oh well. How do we even get off on?
I have no idea, but think about it. Can you imagine the headlines? David Sams is generous to allow a family to live with him during Hurricane Florence, but then he cuts his hand. The little boys rush to the emergency room because of all the glass. So you did the right thing.
Oh well.
Okay.
No.
Let's get back to the sweet tea trio.
Oh, that's who's on today.
yeah, that's who's on.
Here we
today.
go. Let's go. First of all, you guys are known for your harmonies, so I'm just going to ask you right now. Do it for me.
Okay.
I want
You
a
want us
little.
to sing something?
I
or
want a
just
little.
like-
Yep.
Okay.
You got to give me a live performance. All right.
Is that it? I had to.
Gosh, spit my gum out.
Who knows?
Oh yeah, totally.
Amazing grace, how sweet the sound that saved a wretch like me. I once was lost, but now I'm found. Was blind, but now I see.
Bravo! That's
Yay.
amazing.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
How do you settle disputes?
I
What do you?
don't think we've ever been
come on,
asked that question.
I love this question.
Think I was going to start out something simple like how'd you get your group name?
I'm liking the deeper stuff. That makes more sense to me.
This is known as group therapy, literally.
Great.
Awesome.
I think, to be honest, at first we probably just hold it in and get really mad, and then eventually we have to just confront it and go up to them and say, "Hey, this really upset me," and then we talk it out. And usually it'll be over right then, and then sometimes just to be honest, it continues, and we have to talk again, and until it's just over with.
It's kind of like a 3-way marriage.
It's so funny you asked that question because I'm reading this book called Uninvited right now. And the chapter that I read last night was literally about settling disputes. And even if you think that you're the one right, that's not what matters. They're not your enemy. The enemy is the enemy, not them. So,
That's so good.
yeah.
Hello, you're the silent. You're
I
the
know.
silent one.
Well, I was just thinking, we really don't like quote unquote dispute. Like,
yeah, that's a
get
rare
in-
thing.
Get in arguments. We're all roommates and business partners, so we're constantly together. We can get over stuff pretty quickly, even without having to I feel like talk about it sometimes. Just because you realize, my dad has always told me you can control your reaction and you can control your feelings, and so it's just a matter of is this really worth being upset over? Is it worth being angry?
Mhm.
So, and we all get along so well. So we really don't have to like confront
No.
stuff very often. When we were little though, starting as baby Sweet Tea Trio and like going through puberty together, there was definitely a lot more.
We had to have sweet tea meetings
Sweet
with
tea
our
meetings.
parents present. Like, okay, say what you need to
Oh,
say.
and it was bad because then the parents would get involved, but it's so much
We
better
deal,
now.
yeah, we deal with it in a much more constructive way nowadays. The adult way, quote unquote. You can't see my hands, but quote unquote.
So what were you fighting over? Boys?
No,
You've never fought
No.
over a boy?
Typically just
No.
attitude or girl stuff. Like it
Yeah.
wasn't.
Okay.
pubescent girl stuff.
You're like, oh, well,
literally,
you
that's
hurt my
it.
feelings when you said this, or in your tone in your voice
Yeah.
sounded this way, and that really made me feel this way. And yeah,
It's nitpicky girl stuff.
Oh, it's the tone.
It's
The
the tone.
tone.
or the eye roll.
You have a very
or-
nice tone, so you're not offending me whatsoever.
Tell that to my ex-wives. Oh,
They got me
yes.
tickled.
So you all have been together for how long, and how did you come up with the group name? Because, by the way, I don't drink sweet tea. I'm unsweet.
Neither do I.
Oh, you don't?
I don't.
Oh, we have a controversy brewing here. Brewing, I say.
Well, we all had a mutual vocal coach in Alabama. That's how we met each other. And we've been together for 5.5 years now.
Mhm.
So we've had a lot of fun. And then just so many things have happened. You know, Sweet Tea, the name. Victoria's mom has a coworker, and she came up with the name Sweet Tea. And originally, Victoria
hated
and
it.
Savannah hated the name
I just thought
Sweet
it was
Tea.
so cheesy, like Sweet Tea Trio. I don't know.
They didn't like it, and I was like a stickler.
Just put
I
a
was
foot
like,
down.
no, we have to
Yeah,
keep this
we have to
name.
keep it. Even if we end up changing it, we had a competition like the very next week or something like that, and they needed us to have a name. So we said we can use it for now, and then if we want to, we can change it. Well, it ended up getting us some sponsorships, which aren't still in existence today, but maybe in the future they will be again. So it ended up working out really well.
So tell me about the journey to Nashville.
It was like diving into a 20-foot deep end blindfolded in a really awesome way, though, just because that's where faith comes in. I think the biggest part of our journeys was sacrificing so much to get where we are today to be able to live in Nashville. I mean, like, we sacrificed most of our, later childhood. And I mean, we were a trio when you were 13, Kate, and I was, 13, 14, 15. So, we kind of sacrificed those later teenage years that everybody like craves, they say are the golden years, but then we've come to realize that all of that sacrifice and all of that
Totally worth it.
totally worth it. These are our golden years now.
Yeah.
This is the time to live. This is great.
Within a month of being here, we actually had our first meeting with our current manager, Bobby Ritchie, aka Kid Rock. And so things literally, God just opened door after door after door so quick, like within a month after living here, like I said, which they call Nashville a 10-year town, but just stuff.
It was a month.
It was a month. So God really has blessed us so much.
So how did you bump into Kid Rock? Tell me how that all came about.
So Bob, Kid Rock, actually saw a video that we posted on YouTube a long time ago. We were still baby Sweet Tea Trio at the time when we posted this video. And he ran across the video on YouTube, and he sent us an email. And we were like, there is no way that this is actually Kid Rock sending
it
us
said
an email.
Bob, and we're like, who in the
Who's
world
Bob?
is Bob? And we looked it up, and sure enough, Kid Rock was Bobby Ritchie. So.
And he invited us. The email was him inviting us on his Chillin' the Most Kid Rock 8th annual cruise. So it's a cruise that he has every single year, and like all of his most loyal fans are on the boat, and he brings other artists on, and we play shows, and then he does big shows, and there's games, and you just get to hang out with all of his fans who are all super loyal now to us, and they're so awesome. And so we went on the boat. He saw us live for the first time performing one of the shows that we did. And after that, he was like, let's get a meeting set up in Nashville. And so we came back to Nashville and set up a meeting with him and, met him. And it was great. And from the very beginning, I think it was always a lot of a family thing. Like it just kind of felt like family, and there was a connection with him. And we call him Papa Rock. He doesn't know that, but he's our Papa Rock.
He knows it now.
Yeah,
He knows it now.
There you go.
You all mentioned your faith several times. What role does faith play in your lives?
It's a personal thing. It's a business thing. It's a family thing. It's a friendship thing. It's a life thing. The list just goes on and on and on.
Especially being in the music industry, so many people, you hear about people, being addicted to certain things, and how, I guess, tempting things in the industry can be. And luckily we have the three of us to keep each other grounded. But, we're sure to pray together before every single show. That's something that we've always done from really the beginning. And we've realized that God gives you gifts so you can go out and shine his light, and impact people. And we always just pray before shows that one of our songs or something that we say on stage will impact just one life in the crowd. Whether there's 15 people or 15,000 people out there, we just want to impact one life and shine his light and bring love to somebody who might be going through something that's sitting in that audience that night.
Because you never know.
Yeah.
And we've been so blessed to have an amazing family faith-oriented team as well. Everybody on the team is awesome.
Yeah.
So how do you decide what you're going to sing about? I mean, there's three of you. So it's not like, oh, man, I love this song. I mean, is this like a group decision on what you record and what you're going to put out?
Writing typically.
Content-wise, our fan range, it's always been like this from the very beginning, we feel like. But we have fans that are really little, like 7 and 8 year olds, and then older adults. And we've always said from the very beginning that we want to be a band that daddies can say, I want my little girl to be just like you.
Yeah, it's always the biggest compliment.
And that daughters and moms can go and jam out and sing about the boy that broke their heart in high school. We want to be a family band, and we've always prided ourselves in writing songs that, we stay away from the cussing and drinking and stuff that's kind of borderline that we wouldn't want. We wouldn't want our future kids one day singing about,
totally.
So, and that helps a lot with the writing process and picking songs that we just think everybody will enjoy, but that we believe in our hearts as well.
Yeah.
What's the dumbest song you've ever written?
Oh, man, there is a
Stories
few
to
of them.
every scar.
Okay, Stories to Every Scar was the title, which is deep and profound, but the lyrics were just not okay. But in our defense, that's when we first started out 5.5 years ago, and it was, we were, how old were we? I think we were probably 14 and 15. Probably 14 and 16.
I was 15 and I knew what a DGNA was. That was it.
Yeah. So
Give me a couple of the lines. Let me know what you're talking about here.
Every sky tells a story. It's like living her hell called high school, and it was just really bad.
I don't
and then
remember
the
stories.
second verse was about this guitar that was all beat up, but every dent had a story to it. And so all of your scars can tell a story and can be your testimony, which is a great message, but it was just really
we
cheesy.
didn't deliver, so to say.
Yeah.
It's all about the deliverance.
Actually, that sounds like a song I'd hear on Christian radio.
Yeah, totally. Yeah. Totally. I can't think of any more that were like absolutely that terrible, but
oh, I got an itch and I'm gonna scratch it. That one was pretty bad.
gosh. Oh, am I red yet?
Oh man.
Gosh.
I mean, how do you write a song about an itch?
Well, the idea was we've got this urge in us to go out and chase our dreams, and so then we related it metaphorically to an itch, and you have to scratch it. But it was just really bad. It reminds me of like a monkey scratching itself or something.
Lauren's crying. I'm crying too, just a little bit. Okay, I'm done though.
How do you look into the future with things changing so quickly? Things are on hyper speed, and get a grip on what the real opportunities are, and get a grip on where you really spend your time and your effort, how you bring true meaning to purpose to what you're doing without getting caught up into the minutia of it all and the machine of it all. Yeah. And whether it's Twitter this month or Facebook next month or whatever comes out the month after that, what do you focus on?
So we've got all of these things, and I think just staying focused on being very genuine in our music and how we deliver our music, and being very genuine with the fans, I think it's going to bring us the most longevity, just because without the fans, who are you? Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? We know who we are, and we know what our music means, and we know how far we're going to be. We have 5-year, 10-year goals, but without the people who buy our music, listen to our music, believe in us, and come up to us after shows and say, hey, that song changed me. That song meant something to me. That, to me, is going to get us to where we want to be. Now, we may not know what the future holds in 5 years, because technology is rapidly just like taking off 24/7. But at least we know that our fans will always be there, and our music, it will always be there, and our talent, our God-given gift will always be there. Those are the things that we can rely on.
Yeah.
So we're just headstrong focusing into that, I guess.
Because with the Legends, they didn't have all of that social
Totally.
media, and they did something right.
That's right.
You really hit the nail on the head. It's all about authenticity.
Mm-hmm.
And the more authentic you are, and the more you talk about who you really are,
Just stay true who you
people
are.
will relate to that.
Yeah, and the vulnerability, I feel like, is super important as well, just because, like, me as a listener, before I got into music, I could sniff out somebody not being genuine in a heartbeat. And I've had people tell me that day in and day out, like, people can tell when you're not being genuine, and you girls are super genuine and you're super real. And that's what we get that compliment a lot, that we're just very personable and genuine, and that's what we shoot for. So, you know, hopefully that will get us where we want to be in the long run.
I would like to just take a minute and have each of you, one by one, tell me something that you have struggled with in the past. Kind of walk me through that a little bit and tell me kind of how you've worked through that. Maybe you're still working through it.
Yeah.
A few months ago, my family and I were on the way home from the beach, and a car was rear-ended on the opposite end of the interstate and came flying across the median and hit us head on. And I was in the car with my two parents and my brother at the time, my little brother. And it was the scariest moment of our lives ever. And the people that hit us were ejected from their car. And when we finally stopped and came to a stop and our car stopped moving, I could just see those people laying in the grass. And that was a lot to go through, and going through anxiety after that. I think I've just had this fear, because that was always one of my biggest fears in life. And so now I'm almost scared to have fears, because I feel like those fears are going to come true, because one of them did. And we were actually talking about the movie I Can Only Imagine when we got in here. And that movie had just come out, and my parents and I watched that while we were all still recovering, laying at home.
She broke her back. She didn't mention that, but she broke her back.
Had to be in the bed.
And wore a back brace for a while on stage. My back tie, I Can Only Imagine. My little brother has just randomly picked up the piano. And I've always done music in our family. And I think just being around that his entire life, he's picked that up too, because we came home and like a few days later, he sat down at the piano, and then the da 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 da. And it was such a moment for me. I just like broke down crying, because it was that moment where I realized like I almost could not have heard my little brother ever play the piano again. And it was such a God moment. And I think that my family is so much closer because of that. But just dealing with the anxiety now of being in cars, especially, or like I went to the movie theater and was afraid that something was going to happen, like somebody was going to walk in and something bad was going to happen, because that's always been one of my biggest fears too. And working through that, and just, I really just started digging into the word every single day recently. And I watched a church service on having anxiety, and it was on 1 Peter chapter 5. And it was going through the verses, and one of the verses says, cast your anxiety upon the Lord because he cares for you. And it was breaking down that verse, but the verse before that says that we have to submit ourselves to the Lord and humble ourselves in the hands of God. And if we can't humble ourselves and give that to him, then all of those anxieties are not going to go away. We've got to be able to say, look, this is my problem, and I know I have this problem, but it is yours, and I'm humbling myself in you, and know that my plan is not what's going to happen. It's all up to your plan. And that has really helped, just being able to know that God is always there. But I still deal with it. I'm not going to sit here and say that like everything is good, because there are days where there are days where it's hard, like being on stage and having to wear a back brace. That was uncomfortable, because I've never done that before. And I thought that people were going to look at me differently, and that they were going to know. And I called it my turtle shell, and was able to joke about it. But, and then we just realized at the end of the day, it's not about how you look or anything like that, but that's me. That's Kate.
So how's everybody doing now?
So I broke my back, and with lots of prayers from our amazing team, it's healing slowly but surely, which is such a blessing. Good. But everybody survived, and I think that was the biggest thing, because looking over and knowing that those people could have not survived, and that there were 2 kids in that car, is what absolutely just wrecked my heart on so many levels when it happened.
Yeah.
And I just made through all that without crying.
Yeah.
Go you.
All right, I'll be impressed at myself if I don't cry over this. So one thing that I have totally struggled with is clinical depression and anxiety. Being a young person in this day and age, you run into a lot of roadblocks when it comes to feeling accepted and feeling like a functioning part of society, so to say. And ever since I was a child, I always had this. Like, never knew what to call it, never knew what this feeling was. All I knew is that I would have these times and these moments where I would just feel sad for months on end and just not knowing. Of course, I would appear happy, but it was just this like huge weight on my chest and me just being like a 12-year-old kid going, what in the world is this? You know what I mean? So as I've gotten older, it's definitely been a struggle. And let's see, how long ago was that? Do y'all remember when I was going through all that? Was that like last November? 6 months ago or so. So about 6 months ago, here come the tears. About 6 months ago, I really, really, really started to get bad. And I'm just so thankful that today I can sit here and say that I'm way better, because it's a lot to go through, and luckily I have them and I have Christine and Lauren in my family. But, just being a young person and having all of those feelings and not knowing really like what to do with them, or like, how do I deal with this? Is it ever going to go away? The doctor told me that it's clinical. Okay, does that always mean that it's always going to be here? And I've realized that you can totally get past it, and these are totally happy tears, by the way. They are not sad tears, but it's one of those things. I want to show other young people who are going through this that you can get through it, no matter what you've gone through. I had to grow up really fast because I have a brother with autism, and he's completely non-functioning. So as a child, I felt like part of my job was to care for him and to make sure that I was the perfect child and that I did everything right. And so I think that's kind of like where a lot of that stemmed from. And luckily, I have the most perfect parents in the world, and they've taken really good care of me. But, this is it's something that a lot of people, I did not realize this when I got diagnosed, is that a lot of people deal with this. Like clinical depression is not something that is once in a blue moon. And like our drummer struggles with that too. Our bass player struggles with that too. And I have great conversations with them about it as well. And I've also found, on a happy note, the keto diet has made my anxiety literally go away 100%. And it just kind of shows me that like your health and how you take care of yourself and how you see the world and how you control your emotions helps control how you're going to feel inside. And like every day when you get up and you say, this is going to be a great day, I'm going to be better, this is awesome, I am going to get over this, it just gets better over time. And since November, I've gotten off of my antidepressant, and I rarely take my anxiety pill. If I ever take it, it might be if I'm up till 4 o'clock in the morning, I can't sleep, just because it's an antihistamine. So that's like the only time I take it. So that is something I've struggled with, that anybody who is listening, this is just something that you may have to deal with it for the rest of your life, but it's not something that you cannot give to God and just say, here, I can't deal with this anymore, so I know you can, and I know you are never going to give me anything that I can't get through. So that's what I've struggled with. But the happy tears are rolling because I'm doing so much better. But yeah, that's totally me in a nutshell, what I've struggled with. Well, Savannah, would you like to cry with me now?
Oh yeah, well I know I will.
I relate to everything you're talking about, because I've dealt with the same issues in many ways, with the highs and the lows and the depression. I've dealt with, and by the way, I have such a heart for those with, especially the parents with autism or with the kids.
Yes.
Your parents obviously are real true champions, because I don't know if you know this statistic, but 80% of couples with an autistic child get a divorce.
Well, and get this. So Lucas got diagnosed when he was 2. He's 19 now. I'm 21.
Mm-hmm.
And when he got diagnosed, it was literally unheard of.
Mm-hmm.
As a child, we would go to church like all the time. And then when Lucas got diagnosed, they totally disowned us. And so a child that goes through that, and like as a kid, like I remember it happening, but I don't really remember my feelings until now as an adult, that they've all surfaced since I've got diagnosed with depression and anxiety. And I'm like, wow, like they completely did us wrong, but we still have our faith in God, you know. And my little brother, like, we read Bible stories to him, and he goes to camp where he does Bible study, and my Nana and Pop take him to church, and it's great just because we're all super, we all lean on God no matter what.
Well, thank you for sharing. I mean,
Yeah.
I really appreciate it.
I got my cry out for the
You
day,
did.
so that's good.
It's helped me to cry. Sometimes I just make myself cry because I'm like, I feel one coming.
Yeah. So I got mine done for the day.
Okay, so with me, my parents got divorced, and going through that, because of that, I had some times where I just wish that I could have been with certain people more often. And then right when it happened, I ended up, literally the day it happened, my pawpaw died the same day. And then I went to college 2 days after that and moved in with 3 strangers. And that was really difficult because golly.
Me too.
Anytime they cry, I cry too. So I'm like, gosh.
Just because I felt super alone, and like I couldn't talk to them because everything that just, you know, vomited out with my family, we didn't know if for sure that they were going to get divorced or not. And so we didn't want to talk about it just in case it wasn't going to be anything, because we, you know, anyway. And so then with college, I just felt super alone, but it was crazy because I was bawling my eyes out, doing a devotion and listening to Pandora. And I just kept praying, God, I'm so alone. I'm so alone. And then I Am Not Alone came on by Kim Walker. And I just knew that God purposely played that song for me, because that's literally the exact prayer I was praying. But then after that, I moved here to Nashville, and still just felt like, you know, everybody wants to have the family whole feeling. And because I wasn't ever with my mom or my dad because I moved, I placed that role, or that, you know, family on the girls, Victoria and Kate, and because we lived together, and I knew when I did that it wasn't fair to them at all to hold such a responsibility, and because you're putting so much expectation on them that is not fair for any human to hold, especially when they're your same age and they don't know what's going through your head. And but then this book that I'm reading right now, I mentioned it earlier, it's called Uninvited, and it was like it was written for me. It talks about I forgot to mention that because I viewed them as my family and home, because for the longest time, because I went to college and lived in a dorm and then an apartment, I just felt like I had a house, not a home. And so with them, I felt like, oh, I finally have a home and a family. But because of that, like I said, it created so much expectation for them and high standards for them, which they don't deserve to have on them. But also, because we're business partners and we live together and all of the roles are all in one, I didn't want to upset them in any way, because they, in my mind, like I said, were my family, and you don't want to ever have drama in your family. So I didn't want to upset the one whole thing that I had. And then I started reading this book, and it's like, you can't have those. So if I did upset them, I just felt so rejected, or like, what did I do wrong? But in reality, you can't put that expectation on any human. You only can put that on God, because he's the only one that can disappoint you. And also just the fear of rejection. And I've just realized, like, wow, I didn't even know that was my issue, but that is totally my issue. I just don't want them to think bad of me. And the crazy thing is my personality. I don't care what anyone thinks other than the people that I love, because I want my family to think highly of me, and I want I want it to be whole. But anyways, obviously you can see I'm still working through it, because I believe that with any struggle, yes, you can overcome it, but it's still a daily choice to live it out. And it's not like just a snap, oh, it's over with and done with. It's still a daily regimen. Is that the right word?
Oh yeah, because I
Daily
go through
battle.
that. I go through that sometimes, where some days I'm just like, oh my gosh, is it coming back again? So I completely get that.
And I've always been a Christian my whole life, so I've always said, oh, my identity is in Christ. But in reality, I was like, what is an identity? Like, how do you know what truly an identity is? If you love Jesus, okay, I guess that's the identity. But no, in reality, it's like what you focus all your attention on, your minds, your words, like what you're thinking about, what you're talking about. That can literally tell you what is your identity, and what you find. Like, if you lost it, would you still be who you are? Wow. And I realized that recently my image has been my identity without even me knowing it, and wanting people to think that I was pretty. And if they didn't, that I wouldn't be the same person anymore. If I gained a lot of weight, I still wouldn't be the same person. And I didn't really know where that was coming from, but now I do know that I was making that my identity. And that didn't make me not a Christian anymore, but it just made me realize I need to straighten out my priorities and focus my mind and my attention on God, and then everything else will line up. It's like if you have a button-up t-shirt, if you button the start in the middle or start in the bottom, you can get hanky-chawed and your shirt's all crooked and messed up. But if you start at the top one and put God at the center, all of the rest of them line up. And now that I've realized all of this, it's just so much better. But like I said, it still is a daily battle.
Well, like I said, this is group therapy.
Yes.
I can't believe I just cried that whole conversation. I'm so sorry.
I cried my whole conversation, so at least you're not alone.
We're going to meet here every Wednesday.
Yes.
Okay, good.
Oh, man.
That was wonderful, you guys. That's the authenticity that will separate you out from so many people, and I know that the folks listening really appreciate your stories. Let's now shift to Christmas.
Yeah.
Okay.
Christmas.
Oh,
That
I
is a
love
happy
Christmas.
time.
Let's shift to Christmas.
Yes.
Christmas is that special time of the year. You know, I could put you on the spot and say, give me a Christmas carol, Jingle Bells, or
Yeah. I mean, and like we can put harmonies
to
to
anything.
anything really. You can just add them on there, and
All
it's a harmony based song, like
You
Jingle
know
Bells.
Noel.
Go jingle bells. Do that.
Jingle bells, jingle all the way. It's weird. Oh, what fun it is to ride. This is
Okay,
like
this
a
is
minor
bad.
jingle bells.
Yeah,
It's
this is
depressed
really
jingle
bad. It's
bells.
because of the conversations we just had.
Jingle bells.
Yeah, it's like minor the whole
It was
time. I'm
minor.
like, I'm sorry, Santa.
Oh, that's funny.
The elves are.
Yeah, because
The
Jingle Bells
elves are
isn't about
crying
Jesus
in their
anyway.
workshop.
So
Yeah.
We tried.
That's right.
Growing up, give me your fondest Christmas memory. Tell me some tradition that you just love, that every year you just can't wait for. Go for it.
Okay, well, I get tickled because I like baking Christmas pies with my Nana and my grandma. And I always it usually snows around Christmas. So like as a kid, I remember playing in the snow, and it was just amazing, because when does Alabama get snow? The only time it gets snow is usually around Christmas. And then another thing that I remember as a little kid that my grandmother still does is that she puts candy canes on the Christmas tree. And when I walk by our Christmas tree, I get a candy cane. And just I guess just the fellowship of Christmas is the best thing. And even today, I'm such a kid. When I wake up Christmas morning, I'm like, it's Christmas. And I just get so excited. It's the best thing ever. And another family tradition that we don't do anymore because it's way too much effort is that when my dad was growing up, and when I was super little to where I can't even remember, my uncle used to hang his Christmas tree from the ceiling. And that would be a fun thing to do, was get the Christmas tree and hang it up from the ceiling. Yes.
What?
And so we have pictures of his house, and this Christmas tree would be hanging from the ceiling, and my pawpaw would be trying to hold it up. There's tons of pictures like that. But yeah, those are some cool things about my family for Christmas.
I I love Christmas in every single way. It's
Oh,
like
yes.
the happiest time. I
It
think
literally
everybody loves
is.
Christmas. It's just it's not warm outside, but it's such a warm feeling that you
It
get at Christmas.
is.
I don't know. It's something about it. My dad, Christmas morning, every Christmas since I was little, plays like the Amy Grant Christmas station. And
Oh,
so I
yes.
just remember being a little girl and just like hearing that music and walking down the hallway and being so excited to see like the presents, and I just have family time. But we've always opened our stockings first, so my little brother and I like sit on the floor in front of our whole family.
Us too. That's what we do too.
And we'll open stockings, and then usually my grandparents and my parents will cook a big breakfast, and then we'll eat, and then we'll do presents under the tree. But originally I'm from Baton Rouge, Louisiana, so all of my family is in Louisiana, but my parents are in Alabama. So Christmas has been different over the years now, because sometimes we'll go back to Louisiana and have Christmas Day with family from Baton Rouge, or we'll just stay back in Alabama and just have our own little Christmas, and grandparents might drive up. So it's been different. But one thing I've always loved is just walking down the hallway and my little brother always being behind me. And no matter how old he gets, he will always be my little one. And
Aw.
like his pitter patter when he was little, like he would run down the hallway and come get me, and it's Christmas. And
Oh,
no matter
yeah.
how old he gets, his feet will always pitter patter behind me on Christmas morning.
Oh,
And that will
that's so
always be something.
sweet.
And for me, my dad was in charge of the stocking, and my mom was in charge of all the other presents. And so, for our stocking, we opened that first as well. And we would go in chronological order. So either from oldest to youngest, or youngest to oldest, we alternated each year. But each present one at a time. And so we did the stockings. And my dad is such a cheapo. He would always buy the stuff at Dollar Tree, every single gift. And when I was younger, I didn't realize what was going on. But I loved the gift as if it was a bicycle, because I'm really weird and I like the noises that fingernails make when they click on either a table or a window. So he'd always give me fake fingernails from Dollar Tree in my stocking. And that was like my favorite present out of all of them, really.
Girl, I got you a whoopee cushion from
Yeah.
the Dollar Tree.
The Dollar Tree. It was his favorite store. And so for Christmas, what I'd always get him is I'd save up $1.10, because there's some saying about that, I think. But for my dad, because everything's $1 plus tax at Dollar Tree. So I'd say you can buy one thing at Dollar Tree. And so that's what I'd give him for Christmas every year, is $1.10.
Or y'all's pajamas. Tell about your
Oh,
pajamas.
yeah. So we'd always take, me and my sisters, I have two sisters. We'd always get into these pajamas. They're short Sophie shorts. They're red, high stockings with fuzz on the top. They're red and white striped, a white tank top, and then a Santa hat. And we get in this pose, and we take the picture every year. And we call ourselves the Santa's Little Helpers, and then Santa's Little Heppers. Anyway. Oh my gosh. Anyway, and eventually my nanny growing up, she had a great granddaughter that moved in with her, and so she'd spend Christmas every year with us. And so then she eventually started coming in and joining us in this tradition with the pajamas and being Santa's helpers. And but yeah, another tradition is we'd have like cinnamon rolls before we opened our presents, and then after we opened our presents, I got a funny story about that one. We have a big breakfast, eggs, grits, biscuits.
Y'all have cinnamon
all that.
rolls and the extra?
Yeah. And
Ooh.
so, because
Ooh,
cinnamon
yeah.
rolls, so we wouldn't get hungry while we're opening our gifts. And then afterwards, we'd have this big old breakfast. Well, one time they put me in charge of making the grits. And I thought I was all big and bad or something, because I got to cook. And so I'm reading the instructions, and it says to put a tablespoon of salt. Well, it said 1 tablespoon, so the number 1. Well, I saw the number 1, and I was holding all the measuring tools, so I just assumed it was 1 cup. So I put a whole cup of salt instead of 1 tablespoon of salt. And the grits, and it's grits, so you don't see all the salt in it, And so everybody gets a big old helping size of
nice,
grits.
nice sand.
Nice sand, basically. And someone took the first bite, and we were like, oh my gosh, these are so salty. And then everybody tried it, and we all started laughing, and it was funny. But so that is the trick. And then after we open all the presents, we just play with whatever we got.
I love it. I love it. Well, did I tell you they were something else or what?
I mean, First of all, let's talk about their amazing blend of harmonies.
Oh,
They're not just authentic, incredible young women. Their music, their voices, they're angelic. That is a gift that God gives you, David. You know, I do karaoke and I love it. And I'm not bad for karaoke. You're not either.
you're
We both
good.
love
What are you
karaoke.
talking about?
But that is art. Yeah, it was really spectacular.
You know, I couldn't wait to have you on with this particular episode because you're the mom of 4 daughters, so you sort of have your own little, not singing group, but they're all definitely
Yeah.
performers in their own way, right?
Right, they are.
Well, Colby's a singer.
Colby's a singer. She is. She's a Christian music artist, but I wouldn't even say she's a Christian music artist. She's kind of like one of those ones who says, my music's for everybody.
Right. Look at the magic between these 3 girls and how they complement one another. By the way, can you believe they're managed by Kid Rock?
No,
Co-managed.
you mean Robert Ritchie.
Yeah.
Yeah,
I mean-
that's insane. I didn't know he was that smart, that he could discover talent like that. Apparently, I was mistaken.
Well, they paint that picture that, man, this guy's got his act together.
Right.
And
You know, I like him.
yeah, so do I.
I'm teasing. I like him a lot. I think he's a authentic guy as well, just like these girls. Very, very authentic. I think their music will go far. There's no question. There's talent. But I think as people, even if it didn't, they're going to be okay.
Well, let's talk about that a minute because, well, I'm not being life coach today.
Mhm.
Okay. We can sort of open up this conversation with the listeners because my experience throughout my entire entertainment career, people ask me all the time, you know, when you launched Oprah, what was it about Oprah that really stuck?
Right.
Okay. What was that sticky thing, right? And you know what? It comes down to one thing. She was authentic. She was,
Authenticity.
yeah.
Yeah.
She had that thing, and I remember back in the early days, she would run around the studio without shoes on.
hmm
Now, that may mean nothing today, like who cares? You know, we've all seen the shots of the news anchors with shorts behind the set,
Right.
you know, instead of the suit pants, right? So we kind of know that stuff goes on now, but back in the 80s, TV people were really very proper.
So for her to say, my feet hurt and I'm taking my shoes off, was
Right.
her just not being fake.
Right.
Yeah.
And there was
get
so
it.
much about her that she just put herself out there. I remember we went through this whole period where the media would refer to her as America's girlfriend.
Yeah, I remember that.
Now, then again, everybody sort of tried to steal that afterwards, but
Mhm.
Oprah was the original America's girlfriend back in the day, right?
Yeah.
And it comes down to, once again, that authenticity that makes you something special.
What's unfortunate, David, is that more people are not authentic. They're out there faking it, putting the smile on, wearing the masks, and
Especially on social media.
and especially in church.
Mm,
Yeah, you're right.
yeah.
They paint their lives as these perfect things, and then you hear, "What? They got divorced? What? They committed suicide? What? This happened? That?" Because they're faking it. And I think if more people would be authentic throughout the country, I mean, if that could be our big mantra, be authentic, we could probably fight depression, anxiety, if we just be honest and own it. But people aren't, because everybody's trying to compete with the Joneses.
People ask me, hey, why aren't you a pastor? Why aren't you this or that? I try to put it out there as much as I can, and that is, you know, don't put me on a pedestal because I'll fall off.
Exactly.
And I'm not talking about every once in a while.
You're talking about every minute,
Like
every
like
hour.
every day I fall off the pedestal.
Yes.
Some
exactly.
days harder than others, but I always fall off the pedestal. So don't put me on it. And it's sort of like my little disclaimer. Like, I know I'm going to fail.
Right.
Not that I'm going to fail at life. There are going to be times that I go make bad choices, wrong decisions.
Yeah.
And the other part of this conversation is, you know, I really want to do a podcast someday on broken pastors.
Oh, yeah.
There are so many well-known.
Yes.
I
that's
mean, we've
true.
heard this year several mega pastors who have been accused of this or that, or they've thrown in the towel because of this or that, or resigned early, or whatever it is. That's not the fault of the pastors. That's
No,
the
it's
fault of
not.
all of us
It is. Of putting
believers
them on a
who
pedestal.
put them on a pedestal.
And they don't feel safe to tell
Right.
their truth,
Right.
to share their truth. Honestly, it's tragic. And it's why I think one of the reasons we have such a bad reputation.
Yeah.
Because
as
people,
believers.
yes, because
Yeah.
people are looking at us that aren't believers going, why would I want anything to do with you people? You don't even take care of your own.
Right.
I mean, you've got pastors committing suicide,
Right.
pastors getting involved with hookers and all the different tax fraud, whatever, committing all these different things going on, or they're on medication for depression, which is not a bad thing if you need to be on medication, but they don't tell anybody because they're terrified. And think about it. We shoot our own. It's embarrassing. It's awful.
Right. Right. It's really cool when I have
It's girls who are putting it out there
yeah.
saying, this is who we are. This is who I am. One of the emails that I hate when I get, or messages on Facebook, social media, work, whatever, is, gosh, I wish I was you. Your life, you're just so lucky. Your life looks so perfect. And I immediately write, I don't care how many emails or messages I've gotten, that's the one that becomes a priority, to make sure they understand, listen, you don't live in my house every day. And I try very hard not to just put the good stuff on Facebook, and be very real and authentic about what's going on in my life, because that is the danger, is people look at you and then they don't think they can compete or compare, and their life is doomed. And that's not true. We all have to pick up our cross every single day, every single one of us. And I don't know of anyone who's perfect and has the perfect life. And if they tell me they are, I'd say, let's pray that lion demon out of you right now.
I guess the moral to this message is to not put yourself in a position where you're going to fail because you have such high expectations, way beyond God's expectations,
Sure.
right?
Yeah.
I mean, those expectations bigger than He has for us, we're destined to fall off the pedestal, right?
We are. I mean, just take a deep breath. Take a deep breath and realize, and look in the mirror and say, yeah, you're not perfect. Life's not perfect, but it's okay. I don't need to be. Because guess what? You're never going to achieve perfection. So you might as well give that up now.
Don't do what I did. Don't live 6 decades before you figure that out.
Yep.
Because you put yourself through so much unnecessary aggravation and living hell
Yeah.
by having those expectations that you're always questioning yourself. You're always living in the land of what ifs and how abouts.
It's all going to be okay.
It's all going to be okay.
It's all going to work out for the best, especially for those who love Him. It works out together for good. And I'll tell you this too, David, the thing that makes me sad, and I tell girls like the trio and my own daughters, is when I've looked back on pictures of me when I was younger and I was slimmer and I could eat anything and it didn't matter, I didn't gain weight. And I look at these pictures going, oh my gosh, you were so beautiful, but you were so hard on yourself. And you wasted all that time worrying about, should I eat this? Should I do this? Oh, I need to work out today. I forgot. And you beat yourself up because I didn't read enough books, or I didn't do. Just take a deep breath and chill. Simmer down. For goodness sakes.
That's good.
Because life is going to pass you by and you're going to look back and go, God, why did you do? If I could tell anything to my young self, it would be, give yourself a break.
Well, you've been listening to CIA, Contagious Influencers of America, with David and Victoria. We're having a great time here. I am so honored that you have spent the last hour with us. There are many ways that you can share this podcast, but we would encourage you to let your friends know about it. We're on Google Podcast, Apple Podcast, and wherever you get your normal podcast, although most people get it on Apple and or Google. And we also do a little thing on YouTube. We really enjoy this, and we really appreciate you all, and we appreciate your feedback. We'll be back next week with another riveting, exciting episode. You know what? We're going to have to do another one of these because Tim's flying around doing his thing.
Just say when.
Just hang around and we'll do another one.
Works for me.
Okay? We're a week away, so you don't have anything to do over the next week, do you? Well, it's been so good having you here today. I can't wait for the next time.
I can't either. It's always a privilege.
We'll do that. For those of you who want to help us out a little bit, all you have to do is to share this with a friend. You can do that via Apple Podcast versus Google Podcast. YouTube, or wherever you get your podcast. The important thing is to subscribe and to share this with a friend, especially a friend who could really use the tools that we're trying to put in your toolbox each week. So you know who they are. So thanks for doing that for us. So this is David Sams along with my friend Victoria Robinson. We'll be back next time for another edition of CIA Contagious Influencers of America. And remember, go out there and live that life in living colors, because it is sure a lot more fun than living it in black and white. See you next time.